Welcome to my new workshop. This is all about installing the machinery and making the central workbench with a little help from my friends. This is Sean and Dave from Frost Distribution, and the company Frost Distribution is owned and run by a friend of mine, Maurice Frost, and we've known each other for many years. This yellow thing is called a Telehandler, and it belongs to my son-in-law Rob, because Rob is a farmer and it's going to be really useful for doing this. The Telehandler is like a giant forklift truck, so what we're doing is lifting the lathe from the underside of the bed because the cabinet's not very heavy and pulling it out of the van. This Telehandler is a great machine and I really do want one. It's great four-wheel steering, four-wheel drive and very powerful. A few months ago on the farm I was given the chance to drive it and I didn't say no. Great fun, very responsive and very accurate and very powerful. We're using the Telehandler because it's impossible to get the van up to where the workshop is, owing to the fact that it looks like a scene from the Battle of the Somme. I'm scheduled to move into the property next week, so I need to get the workshop in order first, always get my priorities right. And besides, the house that I'm moving into isn't actually finished, but thanks to my daughter Emma, who's pretty good at DIY to say the least, it should be finished and ready to move into by the end of the week. Here you can see the state of the muddy ground. It was impossible to get the van up here. I tried to back my car over it last week and got stuck. But the four-wheel drive, the massive tyres and the four-wheel steering of the Telehandler just makes it a no-problem situation. The man on the right-hand side of the Telehandler is called Dave, and Dave's had lots of experience of doing things like this and it's very useful. And this, coupled with the skill and experience of my son-in-law who's driving the Telehandler, makes it a very simple job to get the lathe up the garden into the workshop. No wheel spin, no slip, and it's a very smooth ride. The Telehandler doesn't have any suspension. When you're driving it, you sit on a seat that's spring loaded and goes up and down. Turning the corner now to line up the Telehandler with the double doors that are open to allow the lathe to be put through into the workshop. Such luxury. And this is what's great about this machine. The machine's hydraulic arm can deposit the lathe right inside the workshop. And once again, between Dave, who's done a bit of a dance here, and Rob operating the controls, the lathe is carefully deposited on the ground inside the workshop without demolishing the lathe or the workshop itself. In this clip you can see how close the hydraulic arm is to the top of the opening. And in no time at all, the lathe is in the workshop, and now it's time to withdraw the Telehandler forks. Dave's directing this, and then the lathe can be moved manually into position. A final check on the position of the forks before he withdraws them, and yes, everything's okay.
I've put bigger things in there than that.
It's a man thing.
It's a man thing.
Yeah.
I put 10-ton chemical reactors into plants.
You were only at one stage about a quarter of an inch off there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if he knows what I'm saying, I go like that, Ed. That's Ed. Yeah.
And to put the lathe in the correct position, we're using manpower. Sean on the left and Martin on the right. And finally, the lathe is in position. This is an old Boxford lathe. I've had it for quite a few years. I think this is a model CUD. It doesn't have a gearbox on it. When the money comes in from the sale of my house, I may treat myself to a newer one. But I'm not going to buy anything too flash or too big, because this is good for showing people how to use a lathe. The next thing to arrive is the tool chest, and this is very heavy indeed. Once again, the Telehandler makes short work of it. Health and safety for beginners.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We're all right there. No, he's not. Just drop it flat. We're going to...
Because Dave's big and strong and has obviously eaten his Weetabix this morning, he begins to manoeuvre the drilling machine into its final position. This may not be the final position, but it's near enough for the moment. This seems to be a logical layout. The metal cutting bandsaw is on the left, so I can take a piece of metal and cut it to the right size to either be drilled, milled or turned. And talking about milling, here comes the milling machine. Just about everything at home now where I'm making the video is in a state of disarray. I edit and voice over these videos on an Apple iMac. And I've had to put this system back together to make this video. I'm in the studio control room, but all the benches are dismantled, so I've just roughly placed things in position. So the sound may not be as good as usual, but it'll be okay once I get in the new place. Here is the proposed machine tool layout for the workshop. The bandsaw, the drilling machine, the milling machine and the lathe. This clip shows my small locomotive, a 7 1/4 inch gauge titch. It's a bit finger marked and wants a clean. I will clean it in the fullness of time. To be honest, I'll be glad when this is all over and the workshop is back together. It's miles better than the workshop that I've left. Here's my model aeroplane. I look forward to flying this on the farm. I discarded the tops from the two old benches. They were both different sizes. I've put the two bottom parts of the workbenches together. And now, in conjunction with new tops, it's looking good. And it's right in the middle of the workshop so I can walk around it. So no more moving heavy objects for the camera. I really have tried to think this through. I know it looks a bit of a mess because we've just dumped things anywhere we can. But once everything's sorted out, as you can see, there is plenty of shelf space, plenty of cupboard space and plenty of worktop space. And this in conjunction with the central bench will make it a really easy workshop to work in. Not forgetting the outer part of the workshop, and here it is, still in a bit of disarray. I've bought quite a few vermiculite bricks that I'm going to put on the wooden bench that you can see in the foreground. Everything is close at hand, the acid bath is behind me, and the polishing spindle's to my right. I may change this layout once I start using it, but for the moment this is the way it is. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website. Click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you will find it very easy to find other videos that you may like to watch.